David Ames has it all: wealth, good looks, and gorgeous women on his arm. But just as he begins falling for the warm-hearted Sophia, his face is horribly disfigured in a car accident. That's just the beginning of his troubles as the lines between illusion and reality, between life and death, are blurred. This is the plot of Vanilla Sky, the 2001 movie directed by Cameron Crowe, starring Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz in a profoundly philosophical, bittersweet, and poetic story with a dreamy, surreal atmosphere. There is a deep paradox at the heart of the story. Is it better to live a seemingly utopian, flawless existence that is simulated? Or is it better to live a life that is imperfect, full of suffering and trauma, but that in the end is real? David Ames starts off as a man who has anything he could ever want. He is wealthy, he is surrounded by privilege, but his life feels empty because it's lacking depth and human connection. After a tragic car accident caused by his fling, Julie, David's face is left completely disfigured. From that point on, the film becomes increasingly confusing as it unfolds through David's perspective, where life, death, reality, and dreams begin to blur together. In the end, it is revealed that David committed suicide and paid millions to a company to preserve him in a cryogenic state, allowing him to continue living in a perfect, flawless lucid dream of his own design. Open Your Eyes is a reoccurring motif in the film that operates on many levels: literal, psychological, and philosophical. Literally speaking, open your eyes means to wake up. But in Vanilla Sky, waking up is not about simply opening your eyes. It is about recognizing reality. Before the accident, David lives through privilege, wealth, and superficial relationships. He wants pleasure without responsibility and affection without vulnerability. Open Your Eyes is a demand for his self-awareness. It means, see who you really are beneath who you think you are. Opening your eyes is portrayed as an internal and introspective act, rather than a physical, literal one. There is also a psychoanalytic aspect here too, which is that this very phrase serves as something that wakes David up from what he thinks is reality. The realization of who you truly are is that the phrase appears inside the dream itself. It is his own subconscious mind that is trying to wake him up to the truth. And throughout the film there is a paradox and split identity happening in David's mind. One part of him desperately wants to stay asleep and dream about love and the perfect life that he desperately wants back, and the other part of him wants to wake up to reality. The film explores the paradox between denial and acceptance. There is also the visual motif of the title itself, Vanilla Sky. At different points throughout the film, we see a sky that is filmed with a warm golden sunset, dreamlike light, and a surreal horizon, symbolizing the idealized and utopian nature of David's lucid dream. The film references a painting by the Impressionist painter Claude Monet, which David refers to as the Vanilla Sky. Impressionist paintings prioritize atmosphere over detail and subjective perception over objective truth. And this is the definition of what David goes through in the lucid dream. He is not living in the objective world. He is living in an emotionally filtered and aesthetically heightened version of reality, subjective to his gaze. The Vanilla Sky shows how David's life has become like that of an idealized painting, which highlights how the film focuses on perception rather than objective truth. The sky is beautiful, too beautiful, which reinforces the core message of the story. Holding on desperately to the beautiful moments of life destroys the very thing that makes it beautiful. Even if you live in a flawless painted world, it is not real or authentic. I also want to analyse the iconic scene in which David runs alone through Times Square in New York. The sequence is remarkable not only because the filmmakers spent around $1 million to shut down Times Square and film it completely empty, but also because of what it represents. David stands alone in the centre of one of the busiest places in the world, creating a powerful sense of emptiness and isolation. The scene feels both existential and deeply intimate. Although David has all the wealth and privilege he could ever want, he lacks genuine human connection. His physical isolation in the middle of a crowded city mirrors his emotional isolation throughout the film. In a way, the scene is asking the question, what if you could have the whole world to yourself? And that is exactly what David does. He constructs a reality based on his wants and desires, but in the end he realizes how a world without real people, uncertainty and unpredictability is not a world at all, and it's not really worth living. In the end, when we realize that half of the movie was a constructed lucid dream, we realize that David is not being prosecuted by society. There is no society, there is no one, only himself. He is being confronted by his own subconscious mind. His mind creates the illusion of perfection. He has Sophia back, his face is restored, and his pain is completely erased. However, the mind cannot simply erase suffering and trauma. What David went through is still in his mind, and the accident and Julie's death remain the emotional truth beneath his fantasy. The trial symbolically is the moment that his hidden guilt comes through. Julie Gianni represents the part of David he wants to ignore and forget about, but that keeps coming back to haunt him. David was selfish towards her because he enjoyed her attention and treated her superficially, and he didn't realise that she was actually in love with him. Julie is not the crazy person of the story. She serves as a character who was rejected and not treated with respect. David did not see her true feelings, so in his constructed dream she becomes the villain of his story, as he does not want to accept his part in the story and how these are the consequences of his own actions. Sophia, on the other hand, is the opposite. She is the ultimate ideal, the saviour, and she symbolises redemption. She represents everything that David longs for, something genuine. In his dream, he turns her into an idea. She is his salvation, and through their perfect life together, David is escaping the guilt he feels. So the conflict between David, Julie, and Sophia is actually just the conflict within David's mind. Julie is the past he cannot escape, that he regrets, while Sophia is the future, a saviour, and someone who forgives him. The lucid dream turns into a nightmare because his mind made it so. His mind sabotages the dream because it is built on denial. Again, he wants happiness without responsibility and imperfection, but his unconscious knows the truth. Therefore, the dream begins to corrupt itself. Sophia's presence in the dream becomes uncertain and fragile, and his whole perspective becomes even more unstable. So what is the ultimate message of the story after we've analysed this? For me, it's that of acceptance. His dream is built off denial, but by the end, David learns to accept himself and the world around him. He accepts the guilt, accepting that life is imperfect and uncertain. Vanilla Sky remains one of the most poetic and bittersweet films I have ever watched, because it explores the emotions that exist deepest within us, the ones we often fear confronting: love, vulnerability, loss, and acceptance. It is bittersweet because David has to lose everything before he can truly understand what it all meant. And the emotion that constantly lingers throughout the film is nostalgia, a longing for a version of life that no longer exists. This was my analysis of Vanilla Sky. I hope you enjoyed.